Today's youth-oriented society sometimes makes it difficult to look forward to old age. Ironically, the majority of us can plan on reaching at least the age of 70. Today's society is receiving a new awareness of aging due to the increasing number of people reaching old age. Negative stereotypes like senility, inactivity, and obsolescence, often thought to be synonymous with old age, are slowly crumbling. Clara Cassidy, 78, offers both a positive and constructive view of aging. Shortly after her retirement, Clara began writing a newspaper column concerning the issues of aging that she felt were often neglected. Later, a second column. This time, her writing was geared toward a younger readership, giving insight into preparing for a happy and meaningful life during the later years. In addition to her writing, Mrs. Cassidy has been giving talks and workshops on aging to a wide variety of groups. Clara has touched the lives of many. Her work has been invaluable to those up in years and an inspiration to those of all ages.
I started to think about retirement in 1959. That's why I was 57. And at that time, I started looking for a retirement place in the country. I found 4 acres and a 7-room farmhouse on the side of Bolivar Heights, outside of Harpers Ferry, and I bought that at the beginning of 1960. That gave me 7 years to get ready for my retirement. So in 1967, when I was 65, I had to take a mandatory retirement. I had really had no plans in my mind except that I wanted to be self-sufficient. Anything that I wanted to do was not be dependent upon my children, and I wanted to be earn as much money as much of my living as I could, and I knew that I would have to have food that I could have off my own place. So I moved there a month after my retirement and started living full-time at a little house that I called Small Comfort. Retirement wasn't a very popular subject at the time that I went out of the labor market, and just year after year I did the same sort of thing for 4 years. And the 5th year it wasn't fun anymore, gathering wild berries and canning all summer long, and it was just sort of an unhappy, or not a happy summer, and I knew something was wrong. During that winter, then, when plans were started being made for the first Mountain Heritage Arts and Craft Festival, I was called in to do some publicity work for them, and that was fun. I was back at the typewriter, and it just seems as if it just pepped everything up. And during that time, I met a reporter from the Martinsburg Journal, and I asked her why there never was any news about Harpers Ferry in the Martinsburg Journal. And she said, well, we don't have a correspondent here. And I said tentatively, do you think I could do it? And she said, you're hired. So that was the beginning of having a little column each week on just social doings and meetings and that sort of in Harpers Ferry. Back then, columns that were written especially for older readers were not terribly interesting. They were of just 2 kinds. One would be written by a doctor, and he would concentrate on things like bunions and arthritis and heart trouble and what to do about it. Or there would be by an economist, and he would give answers to questions that people wrote in on Social Security, how to get more of it, how to spend it, and different cases what to do. And I thought that person needed something more to help themselves, something that would be encouraging, something upbeat to keep them keeping on. And I concocted a few trial columns running about 300 words, and I called it Up in Years. I was so hesitant about them that I didn't even sign my own name. I took the name Ann Elder and thought that was sufficiently anonymous, and sure enough, no one guessed that I was writing them when the paper did try them out. Well, they had a pretty good success, and I was happy about that, and was so happy, in fact, that I thought that the column really needed a wider readership, so I sent some sample columns to different places in the Sun Belt and hoped that somebody would exercise an option on them. And no one did for a few months, and then down in St. Petersburg, Florida, the Evening Independent took the column on a trial run, and it went over there, but they said, we'll only do it if you sign your correct name and give us a photo to run with it. Well, by that time, I wasn't hesitant about the column anymore, and that was done, and it was successful enough that 8 years later, it is still running every Saturday in the St. Petersburg Independent. I'm one who likes to keep her eye on the future, figuring out what's going to come next. So eventually I asked myself the question, what will happen if I can't write anymore? And I had to come up with an answer, which was that I could talk. Along about that time, there came the opportunity to work with someone in Shepherd College with a continuing education in which I could go out and talk about aging to women's groups in the easternmost counties of West Virginia. And I did that for a few months. And then the opportunity came to have a workshop in Hood College under the auspices of Persona. And I've done that for 3 years, and it's scheduled again for next June. Along about that time, I decided that perhaps all during these last years I had missed the mark in talking to older people about changing, because either a woman of my age doesn't need my advice because she's already doing the right thing, or she has passed the time when she is willing or capable of taking the advice and changing. Women have said, oh, I never can change it. I couldn't bear to move. I couldn't do this or that new thing because they have to continue with the old things. So I wanted a chance to talk to younger people. And then the opportunity came to write another column. And this column would be on aging, but addressed to younger people, people who are just beginning the second halves of their lives. And that column has been going for 7 or 8 months, and I'm beginning to get good feedback on it. That one is called Centerfold. It could have, because the centerfold of the average life of 72 comes between 35 and 36. So this addresses the thoughts on aging to those who are just beginning the second halves of their lives. When I take part in workshops of younger people, I find that most of them have come to the workshop because they are in the midst of some large problem, one you might call a crisis in their lives. It might be a job change, a breakup of the family, or children leaving home, or something of that sort. And the one message that I can bring to them through personal experience is that I have lived through everything that they are living through now, and that there is an end to it, and that you can come out into a happy period of life. Of having the dolls as a visual aid through a gift that I had made for my mother to celebrate her 97th birthday. This little figure represents her at age 72 when she hiked 8 miles in the Catoctin Mountains of West Virginia with a group on her 72nd birthday. I have a visual memory, and I think most people do, so that seeing something when it is explained to you lets you remember it longer. So I got the idea of having certain other dolls to round out the whole picture. This one being the first one, Tuffy Stamen, and this one is Beulah Bushel. It might be Grandma Bushel or it might be Aunt Beulah. The way retirement was for women until just the last, say, 20 to 40 years was that they lived in a household with a male breadwinner and they took care of the children of that household. The dolls all have names that pertain to apples, and this is Minerva McIntosh. Like many older people after their retirement, they have gone back to school. And it really doesn't matter whether her diploma is that of high school equivalency or whether it's a PhD. She has learned something that she wanted to learn and is preparing herself for a happier old age than she would otherwise have had. And this is Goldie Grimes. Instead of going back to school, she is using her skillful fingers with arts and crafts. This is a very broad field, and many people go in for painting, others for manufacturing things. They end up with their wares at festivals and fairs. They're always very happy to add this little bit to their Social Security. She is much too busy ever to be ill. She does not seek for ways to fill time, but she seeks for time to use for her specialty. And this is Delicia Baldwin, who is happiest when she is at her typewriter. With this, she may be volunteering at a hospital, a library, or she may still be in the business that she and her husband started years ago. Or she may be writing her 17th novel. It really doesn't matter, because this is where she fulfills herself and where she is happy, where she is expressing herself, and she feels that she is doing something useful for society, and her time never falls empty on her hands. This next doll is Winnie Peel. Where would we be without our social activists? Her pet subject is ageism. And ageism means downgrading a person merely because they're old. Of course, she's also against the double standard of aging, which means that a man is judged differently when he's 40 than a woman. For a man may be handsome and successful, and a woman is over the hill.
Do you think that there's still a lot of ageism today?
Yes, I do. You look through any glossy magazine and you'll see a lot of ageism. Who is it sells cars? Successful middle-aged men or very glamorous young girls. You don't see a middle-aged woman selling a car in the ads.
You see it getting any better at least now?
It will stay just exactly that way until the women stop it. They are accepting it, or it wouldn't keep on going. Or at least that's the way I feel. Now those are 6 very happy ways of aging. And now I'm going to show you 2 dolls that will show you how you should not age. Unfortunately, a great many people do age in this way, and I think it's mainly because they had the wrong role model or no role model. This is Cora Crabtree, who enjoys poor health. She has brought this poor health on herself. Now, I'm not talking about people who are really ill. This is a person who has coddled herself all her life. If she had a tiny headache, she took pills. If anything else happened, she took pills, or she went to the doctor. or she went to bed for the day. But always she was taking what she thought was such good care of herself. One might wonder how a person starts in this direction. Well, I saw a perfect example not long ago at a public fair. There was a young girl, I'll not say a little girl. She was around 10, but she weighed about 150 or 160 pounds. And she was with her mother and her mother's friend. She wanted attention, and she was bound to get attention. She was licking an ice cream cone, but that wouldn't get attention, so she pulled on her mother's sleeve and said, "Mama, Mama." Mama paid no attention. "Mama, Mama, I stuck my finger with a pin." Well, so what? The mother paid no attention, and so, "Mama, I stuck my finger with a pin." And there she was, magnifying a tiny pain in order to get attention her way. And that is the way it starts. You want attention, and so you have a pain, and the pain gets you your attention, and so you magnify it all your life. And this is the last of the negative illustrations for aging. There are a great many people who will have to age this way, the same as Sherry Winesap, because there are a good many social drinkers, housewife alcoholics, and young businesswomen alcoholics, and some of them are going, most of them probably will live to be old ladies. Sherry Winesap is not a happy person. She is trying not to think of tomorrow. She's trying not to think of getting older or any of her problems. And in doing that, she is making herself a lot more problems. The other day, after I've given one of the talks and had the dolls on exhibition, a lady came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, aren't they cute?" And my heart just fell because she'd missed the whole point of the story. That isn't always the case. One time after a workshop with some younger people, two young women came up to me and said separately that while they had found their first white hair and they had begun to be afraid of being old, that after my talk they weren't going to waste any time over being afraid. I think that every person has a source of force within them, and in some it is a force that goes outward, and in others it is a force that comes inward. Now, way back in high school physics, you learned the words centrifugal and centripetal to describe those movements. And a person that has a centrifugal force, the force is going outward, and we call those outreaching people. They offer their friendship and their smiles to persons, and it's no drag. The others, everything is centered inside. They take force from other people and use it to build themselves up. Now, a hypochondriac, for instance, has that inward force and draws, everything is self-centered. And that is part of what makes her ill. Everything is looked at from her own point of view, and she gives nothing of herself to anyone else.
What do you consider to be the most important thing that you're trying to do?
I'd like to have middle-aged people look forward with pleasure and confidence to their own upper years. If they can face their topmost years without fear and without reluctance, they have a great many years ahead of them in which they can find pleasure. Now, I do think that in this day and age, people have come to rely too much on the help of organizations and agencies to help them through the last years of their lives. The most wonderful thing is to have your own independence, and this has been brought home to me very strongly by the fact that when my mother had a fall at 95 and had to go into a nursing home, she wrote me and said, "Well, I've had to give up my independence at last, And that's the most poignant thing that I remember. That was the hardest thing for her in her old age, was to give up her independence, and I'm very much like her.
Well, what advice can you give to a younger person who is used to a youth-oriented society, who is taught us not to really look forward to being old?
Well, it's like when you've learned anything else that's wrong, you have to relearn it. As you get older, and if you are looking for the good in the day around you, you're not going to think it's all bad. It's just sort of going to grow with you. When you're not going to think of yourself as young and callow anymore, you will think yourself is the right age. Whatever you are should be the right age for you.
What kinds of things do you think can be done to be educating people to have a better outlook or perspective?
Well, that's going to have to come from within themselves. If they don't want to help themselves, they can't be helped.
Do you consider yourself to be old?
Well, it would certainly be unrealistic if I said that I didn't. The bod no longer is mod. But I do think that inside me is a very, very young person. I call her Clarabelle. She's the one that makes me make mistakes. She's the one that is happy when I'm happy. She's the one who enjoys things. Anything emotional belongs to the younger child.
Do you feel that ideas and values stay the same?
No, well, the things of the body must grow old. That's the way the world was set up, and it has to be that way. But your ideas can stay as young as you wish them to be. If you keep your curiosity, your imagination, those are childlike things that you can keep until the day you die.
Do you ever think about death?
Well, honestly, like any person my age, I look at the obituaries every day. I always look at the age of the person, too. And it seems much more shocking when the age is quite young. This is something that happens to older people. They're losing friends. And there's only one thing to do about that, and that is they should be making new friends all the time and not rely on just one friend after the other being lost. And the sensible thing to do is to make friends among the young, and all you have to do is to be interested in the things the young are interested in.
What are your feelings about your own death?
My own death? I'm going to be quite curious. It's the last step in my life, and I've been curious about every step in my life so far, and wondering what would come next, and also preparing for what would come next. A lot of people are hurrying before they die to get to see the Taj Mahal or the Outer Hebrides or something. They think that that's the only chance. I feel that I'll be able to see all of those things effortlessly and without any expense after I die. I can go any place I want. It will all be opened up, the whole world, the whole universe.
And that's what you perceive death to be?
That's what I perceive life after death to be, yes. Be a door opening to something entirely new and much bigger than anything we've ever experienced here.
Cass, do you like being referred to as a senior citizen?
No, I certainly do not, and there are a lot of other people like me. A senior citizen, to my mind, is someone who used to do something and now he or she doesn't do that anymore. You never would think of referring to one of the masters of music in that way. Toscanini, Segovia, you don't call them senior citizens. They're maestros. They kept right on doing what they were doing until the end. As for me, I feel that I have not stopped what I'm doing, except that I started something else. Sometimes I have the opportunity to make friends with young people who are hiking the Appalachian Trail. It's not so very far from here. And one time last summer, a young man was there and I was giving him dinner, and he looked up at me and surprised me very much by asking, just really earnestly, he said, "What do you do for a living?" And this that's something you don't ask a woman who's 78 years old. So I swallowed convulsively before I could get hold of myself. And then I said, well, I was going to say I've retired, and that's not the truth. So I said, I'm a newspaper columnist. And, he took it. He said, that was fine. He swallowed that right down.
Sex seems to be a popular subject in the field of aging now. Do you have any feelings about what's being said?
Oh, I read about that all the time now, perhaps more than I wish. I'll go along with that. They'll say that that the desire is still there, that the ability is still there, but the one thing they never get right down to cases with and discuss is that the availability is not there.
Do you think that should be a problem?
Certainly is a problem if you just find out how many men there are for how many women, and it just doesn't balance out.
Do you think it should be a determining factor for happiness?
No, I think you might. It's like anything else that you can't have. You better make friends with it, and you live around it. One reason that I moved into town from the country was so that I would be able to walk to most of the places that I want to go. The trouble is, in Harpers Ferry, I live right on top of a hill, so one way, either going or coming, I'm walking uphill. Slows me down somewhat. I hardly ever walk just for pleasure. I'm generally carrying something to someone or going after something. In other words, I'm doing errands or trying to get to some place and back.
So it's not only for exercise?
Not just for exercise, but that's incidental and it's not forgotten. It's awfully important to keep your muscles supple right from the beginning. It's not wise to wait until you are old before you begin exercising. I had a friend who thought she would learn to crochet and knit after she retired, and her hands by that time were so crippled by arthritis and so stiff that she was unable to manage the thread and the hook, and she couldn't do anything with it at all.
What do you consider to be the best period of your life?
The one I'm in right this minute. Why? This is what you have. This is the only thing you can grasp. The things that are gone forever. The things that are in the future might not even come, but you have got today. That makes it the best.